Hello, everyone. Well, welcome back to another episode of the podcast series, The Leader Within. Today, I get to introduce special guest Monique Bryan. Monique has a Bachelor of Arts in Fashion Design, three startups under her belt, so she knows a little bit about something about entrepreneurship, and has developed programming in partnership with companies throughout Asia and with exciting global brands like PayPal, Burberry, Tom Shoes, and Shopify, bringing over 15 years of top level industry experience in the areas of product development, entrepreneurship, branding, business development, and personal styling. Today, Monique runs a successful personal brand consultancy while being a brand herself. So when you work with her, you're getting a creative director for your brand. She'll show you how to clarify your communication, build your unique brand personality, and up level your style profile so you can amplify your credibility in your industry. Monique is a breast cancer survivor and has grown an engaged community of over 16,000 plus people on social media while in remission. She's a wife, a new mom, and the host of a five-star podcast called The Juicy CEO. She speaks on international stages and has been featured on global television, in Entrepreneur Magazine, Elle, Bustle, and countless podcasts. Her motto is, "A personal brand is all we have, so it is your job to control the message going out about you." Welcome, Monique.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Talk a little bit about your journey and how did you discover your current passion slash niche?
Oh my goodness. The journey was a rocky one. But like any entrepreneur, it was definitely not a straight line. And I had no idea that I was going to go into personal branding. I didn't even know what personal branding was when I started out. So I had, like you had mentioned, I had many other careers before this. I actually started in the corporate space. So I, climbed up the corporate ladder quite quickly. I was making a six-figure income, by the time I was like 20 something, traveling the world. It was an amazing opportunity. I look back and I was like, I really got to experience the world on a completely different level at such a young age. But like any other ambitious young 20 something, I'm always like, I can do this better than my boss, right? So I'm like, I'm going to quit and go start my own business. And that's literally what I went to go into, not realizing how much energy and time and team it would take to do what a multi-million dollar company does. So I lost all my savings. I lost my, sense. Like I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, I don't know how to do this entrepreneur game. And I didn't know any entrepreneurs. So I started taking all these courses, government funded courses, like anything I could get my hands on how to build a business. And while I was doing that, I would meet other entrepreneurs who would ask me, how did you learn this? And how did you learn that? And I would be like, I don't know. I've been studying it for so long. And that actually pushed me into business coaching because I was like, I can stop physically making things with my hands and actually sell my intellectual property, my mind, and help these entrepreneurs in a way that I wasn't able to be helped back then. So I started doing business coaching. And while I was doing that, one of the things that is really ingrained in me is around personal styling and presentation, because I have a fashion background. I have a styling. Styling is a lot of the things that we did. Photo shoots is a big piece of what we did. How do we make things look appealing so people actually take pause? And that is really where we are today, right? With just the busyness of the online space, being able to stop people in their tracks is the name of the game. And that's the lane I ended up going down. So I had a really close friend, after I was about to launch my like third idea that week, she was like, Winnie, can I be honest with you? And I was like, when people say that to you, you're like, I'm not sure. Can you? Do I want to hear that? And she basically said, can you just own the personal branding space? Because everyone else knows you do that but you. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And then once I looked it up, I realized I've been working in personal branding and guiding my clients in that direction for longer than I can remember. So after I finally was able to name it and I put that title on me, it was so much easier to find clients because now people knew exactly what I did. I wasn't grouped in with all the other business coaches. It was, okay, you're going to get some business foundational pieces, but really, if you're looking to build your personal brand, you're going to come over to me.
I think it's a pretty incredible that one, you have that relationship with your friend to be like, okay, like, yeah, like
I like,
provide me
yeah.
with that feedback because it sounds like it's been instrumental to like the beginning phases of your success with personal branding, right? And I guess based on your experience, like, have there been certain leaders or mentors that you've kind of brought into your circle along your journey to be like, hey, like, can you kind of like show me the ropes, or is it still very much I'll just figure it out on my own and take whatever courses I need to along the way?
That is such a great question. I've had so many people help me along the way or even guide me in one way or the other. Some good, some bad, but it still pushed me in the direction I needed to go. Um when I was working in the corporate space, I had a mentor inside of my company. I had more than one actually. One who taught me how to negotiate for my pay, like how to ask for what I wanted. You know, if it wasn't for her, I would not have had the career I had because I was fresh out of school. I had no idea how to negotiate on my behalf. And there was actually a really huge shift happening at the time in our company. They were opening a new department and they took all the new people who had just been hired. And I was the only black designer ever hired. One, I was the only black person on my entire floor and almost in the entire building at the time. And the new designers who had come in, they were like, you know what? We know you guys got hired to design, but we don't want you guys doing that anymore. We want you doing this. So we're going to move you all into this new department and you'll work your way up the ladder. And maybe some of you will come out as designers and some of you won't. And 80% of them quit. And I was, oh my God, I was terrified. I was like, I can't quit. I had wanted this job so badly and worked so hard. And I had one of my bosses come to me and pull me aside. And she literally said, what do you want? Because she wasn't making that decision. Her higher ups were making the decision. She's like, what do you ultimately want? I said, I want to travel. I want what the big designers have. Like, that's what I want. And she's like, great, this is what you're going to do. And she guided me at the negotiation table. She's like, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to ask for. And this is when you're going to ask for it. And I followed this every time they wanted to change something in my position, my title, whatever. I would follow the same thing she told me to do. And I moved up so quickly. I was traveling throughout Asia. Like, I moved up and I learned quickly. So I had someone who helped me then. And there was a lot of figuring it out on my own. But then when I went into business, when I was taking these governmentally funded programs and I would like eat it up, right? Like I would go to every single one and I'm taking all of the notes. I was like, this has to work. And there was this man who was teaching website SEO. His name was George. He was amazing. Okay. And I kept going back to his class because you can take as many as you want. And he's like, you're always here. And I was like, I really want you to look at my website. I know that's not what you do. He's like, all right, fine. He looks at it. He's like, okay. He gives me a few tips. And I was like, okay. I went back, I changed, I came back. And because I was so eager and I was doing what he was saying, he tells me this later, he actually took me on to mentor me for the next like 2 or 3 years. And we would meet like once a month at a Starbucks and I would buy him a Starbucks. That's what I could afford. And he would teach me things about business, about how to structure, about what I should be working on. And he also helped me get other opportunities. He's like, okay, you want to go and build jewelry in other countries? I actually have connections with this type of organization, this nonprofit. Would you like to go on a trip with them and go source material? And I did. I got to go to Guatemala and, work with, the people who were native to the country. And it just was like the most enriching experience that never would have happened had I not taken on the help from other people. So that was just one of many. And then as I got, more seasoned, I started to pay for the mentorship, right? Like really paying to be in the spaces around the people who can push me forward the fastest. That made a huge difference in the business I have today.
Amazing. I'm glad those two individuals invested into you because I know you're making a really big impact through the work that you are right now. And I guess for those who are trying to figure out, well, what is the best fit for a mentor? Like finding a mentor that is a good fit for me. What are one or three things that you kind of evaluated as you picked, yep, this is my person right here?
Well, definitely they needed to be further ahead than I was. They needed to know my industry. They needed to know business. Even if they don't know my industry, they definitely need to know business, because at the end of the day, business, the foundational pieces of business are the same. Um, and they needed to believe in me as the person who would drive this ship. And that was important. I needed, and you really want to pick somebody whose personality works with yours. I need people who are a straight shooter. They don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time. I'm an action oriented person, and most mentors will not bring on anybody if you're not going to do, like, if you're going to waste their time in the sense that you're not going to action the things they give you, then it's a waste of time on both sides. So those are the people who I gravitated towards, people who are going to actually give me, real straight talk to go and get things done, and they know what they're talking about.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And you kind of alluded to the fact that when it comes to business, there's some foundational pieces that are transferable across the
Mhm.
board, right? So, based on your areas of expertise in personal branding and the corporate experience that you bring with working like big brands like Burberry, Tom Shoes, and Shopify, maybe what's one lesson that you learned in the corporate world that you've brought into personal branding and helping entrepreneurs succeed?
One lesson is definitely that whether you are working in corporate, whether you are a business owner, whether you're out here just trying to make something happen, like, you are always a brand. You are always building your personal brand. You are always building your thought leadership, and you're either being recognized or you're not, right? So standing out in the corporate space was difficult to do if you had no opinion. If when called on, you didn't have anything relevant to say, if you didn't know your stuff, that all transfers over to when you have business, right? When you're working with clients, you needed to be someone who people could turn to and depend on to push the initiatives forward, right? That always was a big piece that moved, that pushed, that transferred over into when I had a business. And the other piece was presentation matters. And when I mean presentation, it's the how you talk, the how you communicate, but how you look and present yourself to your colleagues, to your clients, matter. And it mattered even more because I was in a fashion company. So you can just imagine, like, it was like, I don't know, if you didn't look the part and nobody was taking you seriously ever. You can't talk in a meeting of executives about fashion when, if you are not fashionable, if you don't have any fashion sense, right? They were like, how do you work at a fashion company? You don't have that. It was fine if that even wasn't your role, but you weren't looked at the same. And it sucked. It really did, especially if you're like a struggling person who just came out of school. You don't have money to buy a bunch of things, but it wasn't about how much money you had. It was about how you put yourself together, how you present yourself. And that's the same thing today with all my clients. No one can hear you, the words coming out of your mouth, if what their people are seeing do not match. If people's minds are moving too much on, what is she wearing? What is she doing? I don't understand. That doesn't even make any sense. She doesn't look like a lawyer. She doesn't look like this person. She looks too this or that, or, how she's communicating isn't coming across the way I like to be spoken to. All of these things play a factor in whether or not someone's going to hire you to do something. So the presentation piece definitely transferred over, and it's like ingrained in me for why it's a big pillar in what I teach.
Just say I came to you on the street and I was like, "Hey Monique, like love the stuff that you're doing, love your energy. I understand like personal branding is important. I don't know how the heck to get started. So what would be like the first three things you're like, "Hey, these are the three things that you got to think about and then let's work together," kind of thing.
Okay, that's a really great question. The first thing you need to do is decide what lane you're going to own. Who do you like? What are you going to be known for? And you cannot be known for everything. I know we are in the age of multi hyphenate, multifaceted. Like, I do all the things. And listen, I'm not trying to put people in a box, but the customers and clients need to put us in a box. If we want to be hired for one thing and known for the thing, people need to put us in a box in their mind for when they need that problem solved. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what do you want your name to be synonymous with, first and foremost. Then the next thing we look at is what does success look like to you, right? Building anything, let's start with the end in mind. Are you trying to be on stages? Are you trying to be in media? Are you trying to write a book? Are you trying to launch a new part of your business? Are you trying to get new clients? all of those pieces are going to play a part in how we build you out next, what steps we take and when and how. And then the third immediate thing is, who are you trying to influence? Whose attention are you actually trying to get? Because if we don't know who we're talking to, we don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how they like to be spoken to. We don't know how they like to be communicated with. And we don't know where they're hanging out. So how do we go and find them and inject ourselves into their lives if we don't even know where they are? So those are the three things that I would say, if you need to get started, that's where you start. You need to know your lane, you need to know your big vision, and you need to know who you're trying to influence.
So now on the flip side of that, where have you seen personal branding gone wrong?
Personal branding gone wrong. One of the key things people like, when you are not intentional about what you're putting out here online, that's where your personal brand can start to tank. And it's so easy to basically not care about what it is you're doing, right? So something people are doing that isn't even active, if they're not actually sharing anything online. They've got some dormant, stagnant LinkedIn page with an old photo, no posts, and it's like they're treating it like, this is where I used to post my resume, not a place to create a network or to establish thought leadership. And then they're wondering why they're not moving up in the corporate ladder, or nobody ever taps them for something. So one of the biggest mistakes is just doing nothing and leaving old, irrelevant content out here about who you are. So when things are put out here online, we really can't erase it. We don't know where things go on the internet, but you can push irrelevant and old content to later pages of Google where nobody will find them because no one goes past the first or second page of Google. So if you're not creating any content, you're not creating any kind of digital footprint, and then today, and you're not doing that over time, when the time comes where you want to leave that job or start your own business or write that book, whatever, when that time comes, everybody wants immediate, like, okay, well, hire me or buy this thing or, buy something from me. Meanwhile, you have not been nurturing or educating people at all around the who you are, the who you help, or what it is you do at all, right? So that would be the biggest mistake, is it's thinking you don't have one. Everyone has one, whether they're nurturing it or not. And then leaving old, irrelevant content, links, interviews, articles, websites out here online, and then wondering why people don't know who you are, or people think you're the old you. Like, I can't tell you, like, today, if I didn't tell anybody I used to be a jewelry designer, nobody would know that. There's stuff you could Google. I'm sure you could find it, but nobody finds it. Nobody cares, because we are whoever we say we are, right? I only have to say to only the next, how many people I meet, I do personal branding. Hi, I do personal branding. I'm a personal branding coach. And that's all they ever know. They don't even bother to think about anything else. But when they go and Google me, if that is not aligned, they've lost trust. They're like, oh, she says she does this, but she also does that and that and that. Stop it. It's confusing everybody. So anyways, that's what I'm seeing.
I appreciate you talking about, like, hey, make what's relevant and how it actually opens up opportunities, whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, trying to build your business, etc. But I think the common argument that I've heard is, I don't have time, right? Like, I don't have time for that. But you are an example of an individual who, you were a new mom, you were in remission, and you were basically managing multiple moving parts at once. What's one productivity hack that you've been able to figure out to help you manage all this and grow your own brand?
Oh my gosh. The not have time thing is so interesting, because it's like you said, before I became a mom, I used to think I didn't have time. And then I became a mom and I really understood how much time I had. So we make time for the things we deem to be important. And if we don't have a big vision for our lives, then it will never be important, right? So there's that. Now, in terms of productivity hack, batching tasks is a big one, right? So not having to task jump from one different idea to the next thing, which is difficult to do, especially if you've got kids running around. For sure, your brain is always like, it's like a jumping jack. I think it's like a popcorn maker. I'm everywhere. But scheduling, like when I started, first, I spent a lot of time while I was in remission and while I was undergoing treatment. I actually spent a lot of time on Instagram learning the platform, not knowing what I was going to build, not knowing what I was going to do. It was just, if I'm going to spend my time here, I need to know how this works. And a lot of people, I mean, there's how many billions of people on Instagram and TikTok. If you're going to spend time there, why wouldn't you spend time trying to figure out, how does this actually work? What is the use of this thing? Since you're using all of this, wasting this time here, not building anything yet. So learning the platform you want to be on will make it easier to navigate. But then scheduling out things using scheduling tools is what saved me 100%, because I cannot be everywhere all the time. And there are so many scheduler tools, right? So I used Planoly for a long time, scheduling out my posts. I would batch it on a Sunday, schedule it all out, have the captions written, the hashtags are in there, and then it would go out on the certain days that it's supposed to go out. That was a big one. I did the same thing. I use Buffer for LinkedIn. I schedule them all. I have like 15 just now already last night. Schedule them all. Boom, they go out. And then you can go in and you can engage, but at least you're not coming up with new concepts 24/7. You're like, when you sit down and you have time to think about it and you get in a flow, do it, then just get it out. So definitely the scheduler tools regarding social media is a big one for me.
I have to check out those tools like after a conversation as well. And because I love productivity hacks, right? And with understanding platforms and building communities, which you've done an excellent job at, right? Like, as I mentioned in my introduction, you've built a following of over 16,000 people. What is one thing that actually helped you succeed in building this community?
I do, for the last, I'm going to say 5 years, maybe longer now, I've done a weekly show on Instagram every Monday at 11. So I started doing 30 days live. Then I did 3 days a week. Then I took it down to Mondays at 11 Eastern Standard Time, where I talk about personal branding. It started talking about business. Then when I started to focus on personal branding, I focused on personal branding. So this is something I recommend to every single one of my clients. It's something I help them curate. It's looking at looking at a place where you can put out your information where somebody can reliably depend on you to show up. So everybody knows. You may not see, if you don't know where to find Monique here, there, whatever, maybe you listen to the podcast. We didn't have a podcast when we started. At 11 o'clock on Mondays, you're going to find Monique over there. We had to put it on pause while I went and had a baby, but I came back and I was like, that was the biggest impact that it has on my business. My clients to this day, when their sales start to drop and their client leads start to drop, I ask them, how often have you been showing up? Oh, I was doing it, but then I got tired and then I did. Yeah, and your leads dropped because people need to see you an average of 7 times before they ever consider buying anything from you. So you've got to show up. So that is the biggest thing in my business that has people come in the door, that has me even test out any of my new tools. I test it on my audience. Anytime I want to commit to something, I declare it on social so people can hold me accountable. And that created this community of people who know where to find me, who get to know me, who have been following it, some of them have been on there for 5 years, and they just pop in or pop out or be like, hey, I caught your live. That's so cool. You talked about this. But it is I would say one of the number one things, because you get regulars and you get people who tune in and show up and want to know what's going on and share it with other people. And I'd like to tell people about the lives, because not everybody shows up live and watches it. People are able to binge watch your content if you've got a lot of stuff to binge. If you don't, then they have to wait, and they're like, people are impatient. When they're I like to say when they're in your world, then you get to fire hose them with all your stuff, but as with permission granted, right? I've had people come onto a discovery call and be like, I've just binge listened to all of your things in the last 36 hours. I am so ready to go. It's that cutting that sales runway in half, where some people usually take 6 months to make a decision, to make an investment in their brand. It's like now they don't need to do that, because it's like, does Monique know what she's talking about? I don't know. They can go check for themselves. Do I want to work with her? Do I like her personality? I don't know. You can go listen to me nonstop in your eardrums. So that is how I built the community that I have. by being in their face, being impossible to ignore, and then finding out from them what is it they want, what do they want more of, and giving it to them.
And I'm coming across more individuals who are like, I want to work with Monique Bryan because not only is she like really good at what she does, but I love her energy. Right. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure a lot of us aspire to have that level of energy and it's authentic too. Right. So as we slowly wrap up our conversation, one of my questions to you is the premise of this podcast is to unleash the potential of individuals and organizations. So
Mm-hmm.
based on your experience, whether it's through corporate or personal branding, what would you see as a key factor in unleashing the individual slash organization's potential?
I mean, it may seem like cliche, but it's about caring about people. Like when you care about what people actually want, you will tap into them in a way that maybe people in their lives never do. So when you show that you care more about the individual than you do about the paycheck, than you do about that one task you need, that job you're doing, them joining your program, when you care more about what they want, what they're actually out to create, a different person shows up. That person shows up in a completely different way. I like to say, to my clients, when they say to me, oh, Monique, I love that you don't let me wallow too much in my self pity, or you don't let me, get down on myself. And what I say to them is what has been said to me. I don't interact with you regarding while you're in this circumstance or with the who you are today. I interact with you as your future self. The future self that you put in your intake form when you told me who you want to be and what you're out to create. Because that inspired me to say, not for you to just say yes to me, but for me to say yes to you. So if that's the case, however you are in whatever circumstance you're in right now, I'll let you be in it for a while. But that to me, this is temporary because I'm dealing with future you, future Angela, future whoever. The who you're trying to be is who I'm working with. And that's how I'm going to interact with you. That's how I'm going to build things for you. That's how I'm going to talk to you, because that's what we all need. Too much happens in a day, in a life, that can bring us down. We can be up and it can crush us all in the same minute. It's insane, especially today. It's just mental. So we need people in our lives who will always, yes, you're cheering us on, but it's more than that. It's they almost see you through a lens that you wish everyone could see you through, including yourself. And I've had mentors and coaches do that for me in a huge way. It's like, especially when I was sick, when I had cancer, I had who's one of the most important people in my life. Her name is Audrey, and she is a leadership coach. She deals with organizations, and she works in the mining world, and she works with nonprofits and children and all of these things. But she was a leadership coach in a program I was in. And she never, as much as she's seen me at my worst and knows what's going on, she would only interact with me as the Monique who is healed, the Monique who is better, the Monique who is a leader. She's like, that's who you are. That's what's happening. This is temporary. You will get past this. We will go on to build greatness. Are we on board for that? That's like goosebumps. Like, okay, it's a gift to be able to see someone like that. And that's what I've always wanted to be for others, because it's transformational for me. So for me to be able to do that for others, that is why I do what I do.
That just hit the feels right there. And we need more Audreys and Moniques in the world because it would be like that much of a better place, right? So final question for you then is, what is one thing you are excited about that you're working on right now?
Ooh, one thing that's super juicy that we're working on is we are building a accelerator program for people who want to increase their opportunities, their cash flow, and their visibility. Because we all know those who can get the lion's share of the visibility will get the lion's share of the opportunities in the market. So that's something really excited that we are working on right now. It's too early to talk about too much about what it entails and what it costs and how to, but if people want to know more about it, make sure you're following me over on Instagram at Monique Bryan _co, or you can always come and have a discovery call with me and my team, and we can talk about if it's a perfect spot for you.
Amazing. I'll include all your contact links in the description of this show. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, your story, and everything. I'm excited for people to actually implement the tips that you had actually shared. So, and to everyone else for tuning in to another episode of this multi-part series, thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate you and can't wait to stay connected with you on my next episode.